Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Have Your Say video where you get to vote on whether you agree with the latest episode of RuPaul's Drag Race. And this video is for All Stars 9 episode 8. So today we're going to be recapping this week's episode, going through the result of the Have Your Say poll, and I'll be talking about a little bit of drama to do with Trixie Mattel being called out by Roxxxy Andrews, as well as some bonus tea about Trixie calling out a well-known podcaster. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start by recapping the episode. So the queens go back into the workroom and Plastique is gagged that she wasn't blocked because she was kind of the obvious choice. Gottmik comes back into the workroom and she does seem genuinely annoyed that Angeria blocked her because she felt as though it wasn't really very fair and that she should have blocked Plastique. And Gottmik says that she's going to take that as motivation to try and do even better this week so that she can play the same game. And Nina says that the maths doesn't really work because she has 3 badges whereas Gottmik only has 2. So to say that she blocked Gottmik because she wants to block someone with the same amount of badges isn't actually true. But it does seem that maybe Angeria was a little bit swayed by what Plastique had said, and maybe it worked because Plastique has not been blocked so far, even though she's now the frontrunner. The next day, the queens come back into the workroom, and the mini challenge is that the queens have to get into quick drag and do a photo shoot. I really like the quick drag mini challenges because I think it's really funny. It's also really interesting to see how each person does their quick drag. And I did want to say that overall, I actually thought that Nina looked really good in quick drag. It didn't actually look that dissimilar to how she normally looks. And they did also mention this on the pit stop this week as well. But I thought Nina looked so good compared to everyone else. So I'm not quite sure what that means, but it was something that definitely stood out to me. And Nina ends up winning this week's mini challenge. So we find out that the main challenge for this week is a design challenge, and the queens have to create from scratch a runway eleganza look that takes inspiration from one of RuPaul's songs. And because Chanel was the first queen to ever walk into the workroom, RuPaul says that she gets to pick first. Chanel says that she's going to pick Hey Sis, It's Christmas because she is the queen of Christmas. Chanel also then gets to pick the next person who gets to pick their outfit / song. Chanel then picks Angeria, and Angeria picks Cake and Candy. Angeria then picks Gottmik and says sorry for cutting her last week. And Gottmik picks New Friends Silver, Old Friends Gold. Gottmik then picks Vanjie to choose next. Vanjie picks Kitty Girl because her charity is the ASPCA, but also she loves animal print. Vanjie then chooses Roxxxy to pick next, who picks Lady Cowboy because she likes a challenge. Roxxxy then picks Plastique to choose next, and she chooses Star Baby. Plastique then chooses Georges to go next, and Georges chooses I Bring the Beat because she feels that she could do something space-agey and futuristic. And then that means that Nina West is last, so she gets Cha Cha Bee as her song. The queens then get to work on their outfits, and it's the usual style that some queens are shown to be struggling, such as Nina, who isn't necessarily a design queen, whereas other queens such as Plastique, Gottmik and Roxxxy are shown to be doing very well because they're known for that. One moment that was really interesting was when RuPaul came into the workroom to do the walkthrough with the queens. During Chanel's walkthrough, Chanel said that she actually felt as though she let RuPaul down in season 1 because Chanel had voted for herself to go home. And I was actually really surprised by this because I always felt that Chanel came across as very confident, and I thought on season 1 she was very funny, and when she called RuPaul out on season 1 and said that she wanted to go home because she felt as though the judges weren't appreciating her, I always thought that was quite funny. But it did seem that Chanel was very affected by this and felt as though she had let RuPaul down all of these years. So this was a really interesting moment, and it was nice to see that RuPaul gave her that kind of reconciliation and support that she needed. Okay, so there's not much else to talk about, so we'll move on to the runway because that is the challenge. As usual, I'm not going to give my personal opinion on the outfits. I will say at the end though whose was my favourite. So first up was Plastique, and she had the song Star Baby, and she said that she was going to make the biggest star-shaped train that's ever walked down the runway. And she said that she feels like she's poured her heart and soul into this, and she's just given birth and a star is born. Next we had Georges, who had I Bring the Beat. Georges said that she is a space-age pop superstar who is performing in concerts with all of these little aliens watching, and the beat is super funky. And she's showing a lot of body and she's serving a lot of mug. Next we had Got Mick with New Friends Silver, Old Friends Gold. Got Mick said that it's braids and chains locked up and gorgeous, and it represents how your old friends and new friends get woven together. Next up we had Chanel with Hey Sis, It's Christmas. Chanel said she's the queen of Christmas, so she's having fun walking down the runway. And she feels like she's kind of walking around a Christmas party trying to greet all of the guests, and she's probably had a few cocktails, and she's the ho 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 of the party. Then we had Roxxxy with Lady Cowboy. Roxxxy said that she's walking this rodeo and she's looking fly, and she's got chaps and straw in her mouth and shaking her booty to the ground. Next we had Miss Vanjie with Kitty Girl. Vanjie said that she is the missing pussycat doll and they found her. And she said that she's twirling, getting her fantasy in this cheetah print and animal print, and it's a shout out to the ASPCA. Next we had Nina West with Cha Cha Bee. And she said for this runway she is serving straight up camp with a vamp, and she feels a bit like a sex kitten. And she's dark and mysterious but also sexy, and loving her polka dot hat that she's trying to peek out of and the gloves. And then finally we had Angeria Paris Van Michaels with Cake and Candy. And she said she is serving a sickening leotard with attached chaps. And she's serving it all of the body oddy, and you also better get into the blonde hair that she's wearing. It was difficult this week to pick a favourite because I think there were some amazing looks. I will say from a construction point of view, although I don't know much about construction, I do think that Plastique's looks very intricate, and I think it must have taken so much intricate detail to get to that final point. So I think that was very impressive, so I do think Plastique probably was my favourite in that regard. I did really like Got Mix though, just from a point of view that it looked so chic. But the one that surprised me the most was Nina, because I actually really loved her outfit, and she's not exactly known as being a fashion queen or a sewing queen, so I was very surprised by that. But overall, I think if I had to give the win, I would have given it to Plastique. So the top two for this week are Roxxxy and Plastique, and the two of them lip sync to No One Gets the Prize by Diana Ross. And it's announced that Roxxxy wins the lip sync. And RuPaul had previously said that this is the last week where the queens get to use the ruby snippers to cut someone. And Roxxxy chooses to get revenge by snipping Angeria. Okay, so let's move on to the results of the Have Your Say poll. So question 1 was, which of RuPaul's songs/outfit materials would you have chosen? And with the majority of 24.7% was Star Baby, followed by New Friends Silver, Old Friends Gold with 24.1%, and then Kitty Girl with 18%. And I do agree with New Friends Silver, Old Friends Gold would have been the one I would have chosen, just because I think silver and gold go so well together and it's a classic combination. I think Star Baby is also very good. I think maybe people are thinking because Plastique looks so good, but it would be very difficult to create a star-shaped outfit, especially if you're not a great sewer. So I'm not sure I personally would have chosen this because I know nothing about sewing or construction. So I probably would have just gone for something like silver and gold just because I think it's the easiest to work with. Question 2 was, whose outfit was the best? And with a whopping 69%, which was the most by far, was Plastique Tiara. And this was followed by Roxxxy Andrews with 13%, and then Nina West with 7.1%. And I do agree, I think Plastique looked amazing this week, as she always does. But not only did she look amazing, but the construction of that star train must have been so difficult to get it geometrically correct. So I really do think that she deserves a lot of credit for doing that because it looks so great, especially when they get given so little time to create the outfits. I did really like Roxxxy's look. It was maybe slightly simple compared to some of the other queens, but it was extremely well executed, and it is very difficult to take something like Cowboy and not make it look too hokey, as they said. So I think Roxxxy did do a great job as well. And as I said, I did also really love Nina's look, which we'll talk more about in the next one. So question 3 was, whose outfit surprised you the most? and unsurprisingly perhaps was Nina West with 63.2%. And I agree, I really loved Nina's look. It was perhaps a little bit simple compared to some of the others, but it was just so well made and it fit her body really well. But it was also so surprising because Nina's not really known as a fashion queen or a runway queen or a sewer. So I do think Nina does deserve a lot of credit for that because she did look really great. I was very surprised because it was probably one of the better outfits that she's actually worn this season. Question 4 was, do you like the design challenges? And with a whopping 98.1% was yes, with only 1.9% getting no. I do like design challenges. As someone who's not exactly a fashion expert though, I do sometimes find they can drag a little bit. I like the finished product, but sometimes I think it can take a long time to get there. And it is very important because a lot of drag does revolve around outfits and design, so it is a very useful skill for the queens to showcase. Question 5 was, do you agree with the top 2? With 55.6% for yes and 44.4% for no. So it was quite close, although yes did get the majority. And it seems as though maybe a lot of people felt like someone like Nina should have been in the top 2, and I suppose that's why no did get a decent amount of votes. However, I do think that perhaps you do have to look at whether someone did actually the best outfit or whether it was just surprising that they did a good outfit. I do agree, I thought Plastique definitely deserved number 1 position because her outfit was just so amazing. In terms of Roxxxy, I did like her look. I think maybe I could have also seen someone like Gottmik in the top 2 as well. But I think it was very close and it could have gone either way because both of them did an extremely good job. Question 6 was, who do you think won the lip sync? And Roxxxy got 77.2% with Plastique only getting 22.8%. And I definitely agree, Roxxxy really killed this lip sync. I loved the bit where she got the nail file out and she really had that attitude which very much fit with the song. And then she also was doing a lot of bits of comedy, really vibing with the song. So I definitely think she slayed it. And someone online pointed out that Roxxxy has never lost a lip sync on Drag Race, which I thought was really interesting. And it shows that she is a very good performer. Question 7 was, who would you cut/snip? And with 53.1% was Angeria, and then Gottmik got 17%, and then Nina West got 11.9%. And I can see why people said Angeria. I think she is definitely one of the front runners because she's got the most amount of badges and she's been doing extremely well. It is also, I think at this point, a little bit funny that Roxxxy and Angeria just keep snipping each other a bit like tit for tat. But this is the last week that you can do that, so it'll be interesting to see how that continues after that. And finally, question 8 was, who is the front runner so far, in other words, most likely to win the competition? And this was actually really split between 3 people. So we had Roxxxy Andrews with 36.2%, Plastique with 30.5%, and then Angeria with 29.7%. And I can see this, I do think that Roxxxy, Plastique and Angeria are probably going to be the top 3. Maybe I also would have put Gottmik there, but I do think that in the last few weeks, Gottmik hasn't quite been in the top as many times. So I do think that it's probably likely going to be between Angeria, Plastique and Roxxxy. Although I'm not sure out of the 3 who I think will take the crown. I think it could probably go to either one of them. But let me know in the comments who you think is likely to be in the top 2 and why. Okay, so moving on to the comments for this week. And my Patreon Emmy said, if this latest scissor doesn't make anyone lose a badge next week, the whole thing will have been for nothing, which is a little disappointing. I hope that if they ever bring back this concept, they rework it somehow to make it have more payoff. All the drama surrounding it was completely useless. And I do agree with this because so far nothing has happened with the snipping, so it does feel completely useless and very arbitrary. I think someone suggested online that maybe it'd be a good idea if the queens could steal a star from each other, and that would then create more drama, and it would also be something that could happen every week. Obviously it's difficult to do that because if it's for charity, stealing a star maybe wouldn't come across very well because it would look like stealing from charity. But I do agree, I think the snipping, although it created drama, it does feel very manufactured and not really any payoff. My Patreon member Brennan, or Breezy Mills, said, This week had some very strong tops in Gottmik, Plastique and Roxxxy. Personally, I preferred Gottmik and Plastique for top 2, but all 3 of them slayed this challenge. And I definitely agree, all 3 of them, Gottmik, Plastique and Roxxxy, all looked amazing. Gottmik did look amazing because I think the gold and silver always looks amazing, and the fact that she managed to do that in that amount of time, plus also make that lock handbag, was really impressive. But I do agree, I'm not sure between Gottmik, Plastique and Roxxxy who I would have put in the top 2, but it probably would have been one of the 3 of them. And my Patreon member Amy said, did anyone else notice that they didn't even air Chanel's critique? I feel badly for how her edit is going. And I do think they did show some of Chanel's critique, but I do agree that Chanel so far hasn't really been shown, I don't think, in the best light, which is a shame because I really like Chanel. And there were quite a lot of comments about this on the Have Your Say poll, with someone saying, poor Chanel, when will she snap like in season 1? And I do think that Chanel is a fierce competitor, and I think maybe she's just got in her head this competition, and I really would have loved to see a little bit more of that fiery spirit that we saw on season 1, because I do think Chanel is a really amazing queen, but she definitely seems to have kind of gone inside herself a little bit this season, which is a shame because she is extremely talented. Some of the other comments on the Have Your Say poll said that Nina not being in the top 2 was mind-blowing, and this was the best we've ever seen her look on the show. And as I said, I do think that Nina looked fabulous. This is probably the best she has looked ever, but I guess it has to come down to, is this the best outfit that the queens have made compared to everyone else, or is it just because it was a massive surprise that Nina did so well? If it comes down to surprise, then yes, Nina should have been in the top 2 because it was an amazing outfit. But I'm not sure you can quite compare what she did compared to someone like Plastique and Gottmik or Roxxxy, who I think from a technical point of view, probably it was a bit more difficult to create the outfits. But it would have been cool to see Nina in the top 2 just because I think it would have been a bit of an interesting twist. And one final comment that I found really interesting was someone said, I'm so sick of the judges not giving any bad critiques. Take me back to the good old days where the judges were brutal. Now, I don't agree that we should be brutal to the queens because I think that it can be very detrimental to the queens and their mental health to have that kind of backlash on the show, but also from the fans, because it can encourage the fans to be really mean. But I do agree that I think we should have had some more negative critiques because there clearly were some. This week there were definitely some queens who I think on a normal season would have been red for their outfit because it maybe wasn't the best. But on this season, it has felt a little bit like Kumbaya. The queens haven't really had any negative critiques. And in my opinion, it does get a little bit boring. The fact that there are no eliminations is, I think, a good thing in a lot of ways, but I think if you're going to have no eliminations, you need to balance that with enough drama and also giving us negative critiques, because otherwise it does end up being a little bit boring. So I do agree that I do wish there was maybe a little bit more of the negative or bad critiques, because we know that there are some, I think they're just not showing them, or maybe the judges were just told they needed to be nice. But let me know what you think. Do you like the fact that the judging is all positive, or do you wish that they were like normal critiques on Drag Race with a lot of harsh critiques as well? Okay, so now we're going to move on to a little bit of drama to do with Roxxxy Andrews calling out Trixie Mattel. As you may know, Trixie is currently hosting the pit stop for All Stars 9, where they review each episode. And on this week's episode, the guest was Thorgy Thor. And the two of them were discussing if they liked the Queen's design challenge looks. When it got to Roxxxy, Trixie said, quote, I have an issue with the hair, it's giving bald. Trixie then joked that this wig would be great if you're, quote, working at the bank, but this is the runway of Drag Race, she is shaking her hair out at the gym. Thorgy said that she likes Roxxxy's hair and that it, quote, goes with everything, and Trixie joked and asked Thorgy if that's how she would want her drag to be described. Later, when they watched the lip sync between Roxxxy and Plastique, Thorgy said again that she loved Roxxxy's wig and the outfit that she was wearing. And Trixie said, quote, wearing to what? To the middle school football game. It's offensive that she looks pretty in that hair. Trixie then proceeded to say that Roxxxy's green outfit for the lip sync was, quote, crazy, and that Roxxxy, quote, looked like Yoda. She also said that it was, quote, muted, and it looked like Roxxxy could be sold anything at the store, and that Roxxxy put on her, quote, Dune robe and her bank wig. Trixie also finished by saying, quote, "I hate the outfit, but she slayed the lip sync." And although most people thought Trixie was being funny and shady, it seems that Roxxxy didn't appreciate what Trixie said. After the pit stop episode came out, Roxxxy posted a now deleted tweet which I found in a Reddit thread. In the tweet, Roxxxy said, "Thank you for the pit stop clips. Yet again, I don't care what she thinks. She hasn't been team me since day one on that show. It's evident. Everyone's entitled to have their opinions and that's hers. Y'all lived and that's what matters to me. At Trixie Mattel, heard loud and clear, babes." And then in one of the replies, someone said she wasn't a fan of Roxxxy's wig this week, that's it. But Roxxxy replied to this and said, "No babe, go watch, she even called me many things, even my outfit was called a swap." And for the most part, the reaction online was people were mostly supporting Trixie and saying that Roxxxy was overreacting and that it was just Trixie's opinion and it's all fun. But some people supported Roxxxy and said that Trixie was being overly mean. And as I said, Roxxxy seemingly deleted the tweets soon after posting them so you can no longer see them. And neither Trixie nor Roxxxy have responded any further about the situation, so we'll have to wait and see if any more comes up about this topic. There was also some bonus tea that came up this week in the pit stop, which I thought might be interesting. It all started when Trixie appeared on the Zach Sang Show podcast in May 2024. For those of you who don't know, Zach Sang is an American podcaster who identifies as queer, and he has a YouTube channel with over 800,000 subscribers where he interviews celebrities. However, when the interview came out, there was lots of criticism about it, with many people saying in the comments that Zach didn't know much about Trixie and had clearly not researched her. And he also asked stupid questions and also kept calling Trixie by her government name. The video title for the interview was also criticised because originally the title was something different, but people in the comments were saying that it was clickbait and it was misinterpreting the interview and that it was fueling hate within the community. And the title of the video was changed shortly after. And ever since the interview came out, the comments have continued to be quite negative towards Zach, although Trixie hasn't really said anything about it. However, on the pit stop this week, Trixie did make a shady comment that was presumably about the interview she did with Zach. At one point, Thorgy said that she loves doing interviews, and then she asked Trixie if she's ever been interviewed by a quote horrible interviewer. Trixie then made a comment which was clearly about her interview with Zach Sang, and immediately after the pit stop episode came out, people started posting side-by-side clips of this to prove that Trixie was talking about Zach. Here is one of the clips that was shared on Twitter.
When you're up there performing to a bar full of people, and makeup is very much in the DNA of what you do as well. And
yeah. The theaters I work in do have bars. They do.
There's like something.
I was like interviewed by a guy. He was like, you know, your gigs when you're out there lip syncing in bars. And I said, yeah, the theaters I sell out have bars. Like, I was like, you really don't know anything.
Yeah, like
what you're talking about. Yeah, you don't know what the talking about, bitch.
At least just Google me.
No kidding. If you avoided me on YouTube this long, it's been a choice.
And so it was clear that Trixie also thought that Zach was unprepared for the interview that he did with Trixie, and that he should have researched her more before the interview. And after the pit stop came out, multiple news outlets also picked up on this story, such as Pink News and Out magazine. But neither Trixie nor Zach seem to have said anything more about the situation since then, and Zach doesn't seem to have responded to Trixie's recent comments about him either. So there you go, there was the Have Your Say video for All Stars 9 episode 8. What do you think of the snipping/cutting twist that's happened so far on All Stars 9? And who do you think is going to win the season? Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really appreciate it and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!